Hello and welcome to today's episode of Rainer on Leadership, your online home for leadership lessons and advice for the local church. I am your co-host, Sam Rainer, with my other co-host, my dad, Thom Rainer, the founder and CEO of Church Answers. And, we've got a topic today that I think should interest a lot of people. So, Dad, welcome to your own show.
Well, thank you, Sam. And I've just got to say, the airplane that I'm hearing outside is just a metaphor.
It's a helicopter.
No, and that's another story into itself. I bet even Amy J didn't know that story. Do you know the story of that helicopter, Amy J? No, you don't. You don't know. So you don't see her. We see her. Sam was mostly a good kid growing up, but this was when he was 2 years old. His mother was very pregnant with Art, at least when she could find him in her womb, and Sam was just pitching one of those 2-year-olds fits. And we didn't know what to do with him. And so we knew that he loved planes. Why? We don't know. So we took him to the airport, to the Louisville airport, and we watched the planes take off. And he kept on with the plane just left. He kept on with his fit. And we said, "Look, Sam, there is an airplane taking off." And Sam said,
"It's a helicopter."
Yeah, you are ornery. The plane's back. You're ornery about everything.
The only reason I know that story is because you've told it countless times. I don't have any memories of that story at all.
I wouldn't think so at age 2.
But it's a running joke in our family. Anytime someone argues in a way that is nonsensical, we just say, "That's a helicopter."
Yeah, or anytime someone does something crazy, we say, "You got your head stuck in the fence," because
that's another
head stuck in the fence at Disney World.
Yeah. At Disney.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. We were waiting to get in, and I was so excited. And then there's my little brother. I was so mad at him. His head completely stuck.
I didn't get in, but it couldn't get back out.
I don't know. It's Jess. It's Jess.
All right. So you'll hear the plane in the background with my apologies. I don't know. I can see it even low flying right now. But we're going to talk about how churches are breaking the 150 and 250 barrier. In that range, we put a range here. Post-COVID, not a lot of churches, but some churches. But let me let you thank our sponsor before we go further.
We certainly want to thank Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. They are committed to helping you get the training you need to pursue your ministry from anywhere around the world. That's why they are waiving the application fee to any of their programs for our listeners here at Church Answers. So when you go to the checkout and you're ready to give them information, type in Church Answers in the coupon code section, Church Answers plural. They will waive the fee, the application fee. Southeastern's a great school, no matter what stage of life's journey you find yourself in. They want to help you take that next step to being equipped to disciple and teach others. So when you go to Southeastern, you'll find a seminary that isn't just about theological education, but also ministry preparation. So explore degrees, visit, apply, go check them out at sebts.edu. Again, sebts.edu, Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary.
For those, that's not in
the copy. I thought I'd just add that.
Well, that they deserve that shout out. That's not metaphorical. That is actually literal. If you go there and you apply, check out the MA degrees, particularly the digital MA degrees, because some of you cannot leave where you are, and you can complete those degrees in a year, maybe just a little over that.
No. Here's a little secret.
What?
Church revitalization.
Oh, that's what I was about to say.
They have one in church. Don't tell anybody. Okay. It's on the website, so they probably advertise it.
Yeah, the MA in church revitalization rocks.
I think it's one of the best deals in seminary education.
Oh, I do too. They worked with us at Church Answers for that.
Yeah, go check it out
too. But since I have an airplane noise, you stole my thunder noise.
It's a helicopter.
All right. So we're going to talk about 7 ways churches have broken the 150 to 250 barrier. And in the first 2, and then another one on here, we're going to talk about the pastor. We don't want to make the pastor responsible for everything, because you're supposed to be equipping the saints to do the work of ministry. But quite frankly, in an outward focus, if it's not the pastor leading it, it's probably not going to happen. So Sam, this first part is the pastor has has recommitted to an outward focus. It's just we're going to do this, folks. I've seen you do that.
Evangelistic churches have evangelistic pastors.
Yes.
Churches that reach outward have pastors that reach outward. You, as the pastor or church leader, are the one that is responsible for guiding the congregation. That means you have to be out in front and show the way.
Yep.
And if you're not doing it, there's a high likelihood your church isn't going to do it. So it really begins with the leader. The pastor has to be recommitted to an outward focus. I mean,
Easier
that's the
said
bottom
than
line.
done sometimes, especially in this weariness of post-COVID, where you almost feel like you need a break from a lot, and then to re-engage in an outreach that is actually going into culture and talking to people who are not believers. I know the Holy Spirit empowers us, but it can be a lot of work to do that, to be obedient.
What if we make evangelism and outreach the break? We're all so busy with other stuff. Why don't we?
Oh, I like that. Let's do something differently. Let's have a break.
Let's take a break from all this other stuff and let's go do evangelism and outreach.
Wow. Makes me want to sing evangelism in the 21st century.
We have reached our limit of inside jokes on this episode. That was my dad's first book, probably available on eBay somewhere. Now that you've done this episode, someone's going to jack the price up to like $300 because it's out of print. But yeah, evangelism.
Only 5,000 copies in print.
You know, Billy Graham wrote the foreword.
He did. Back in 1989.
There's some great articles in there. It was an edited book. There's some great ones in there. And then there's some others.
Yeah, that's right. There's a balance there. There is a balance. We'll let the reader
decide.
Let the reader decide for himself or herself. So the pastor has recommitted to an outward focus. Similar. The pastor has engaged in at least one other person for this outward focus. So you're not doing this on your own. You have someone to whom you're accountable and someone that is accountable to you in this process.
Yeah, I'd view number one as more of a commitment and number two as more of the accountability.
I like that.
Number one is like, I'm going to commit to do this. I'm making up my mind to do this. And then number two is, okay, I need to do this at least once a week. And there's a metric or some measure of accountability behind it. So it takes commitment and accountability. That's how I would kind of paraphrase number one and number two.
And here's a simple thing. This sounds simple, but it is. But most pastors are not doing it. It is just one of Satan's greatest tools is distraction. He gets us doing the good things to the neglect of the great things. And as a result, we're not doing the Great Commission because we're doing so many other things. Sam, I recently made a presentation. You made a presentation to the same group. Some of our clients that we call Platinum, which is, by the way, I don't know if it's going to coincide with this, but we typically only keep 25 of these clients, and it's basically we're on 24/7 call. We'll get with you for a major event once a year, just you 25, and we're there with the concierge service. So Platinum has been a real great thing. Well, I do original research for making a presentation annually to the Platinum group, and one of the things that really surprised me in this research is there is this usual assumption that when a church moves to the left, it loses its evangelistic focus. So it is sometimes said if a church becomes liberal, it loses its evangelistic focus. What I found was when a church loses its evangelistic focus, it becomes liberal. So that's not just a play on words. It's if you lose your main thing, you're not going to do well with the other main things, the doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
So
completely agree. For once, I'm in a complete agreement with you.
Thank you. With that, I'll consider it a victory and move on. There has been an intense re-engagement with the community. What could that look like?
Well, it starts with leadership. So
again,
yes, the pastor is engaging with the school superintendent. The pastor is engaging with other pastors. The pastor is engaging with the mayor. The pastor is engaging with the football coach.
And you're in civic organizations too.
Yeah, join a civic organization. That's one of the easiest things to do. I've been a part of Rotary. I've attended Kiwanis. I've never quite joined, but I've been connected there. I'm on the board at the local YMCA.
Ooh, that
So
makes me want to sing. I won't do it. I won't do it.
no, no. So yeah, and then there's an encouragement from the pastor to the people to do the same. I know, like there's one person on our staff that volunteers for guide dogs. She's a dog lover, so she volunteers at the local training facility where they train up service dogs. That's kind of her community commitment. Uh, so I think the church needs a culture of community commitment, and that can be formal ministries. We serve the homeless once a week. We partner with the ministry that serves the homeless, and we've sent a lot of people over there to help them out. So it can be very formal things, very structured things, or it could just be something cultural, like, hey, our people are just involved. Our church sponsors ball teams in the community, and we make sure that our people are represented on those teams. So we've always kind of said, if you're going to be in the community, if you're going to be in a sports league, the church will sponsor the team as long as you're committed to an outward focus through that team. So there's lots of ways to do this,
and the relationships develop well. My church in Florida, not too far from where you are now, in St. Petersburg, I was in a civic organization. Introvert me, I was in a civic organization.
Your motive? What was your motive?
To make your mother happy.
Right. You were an elk because the pool was available for her children.
Yes, she told me to join the Elks, and I so remember the initiation where we had to go, ooga, ooga.
This may be our silliest show ever.
Well, I did join the Elks, and you boys got to know a lot of kids in the community as a result. So there's an intense re-engagement in the community. This next one, there will be people who will at least psychologically or emotionally balk at it if they don't articulate it. Leadership has established metrics for accountability. Okay, in the course of a week, you staff members will intentionally engage X number of people who are not members of a church. Not necessarily a metric that says someone gets saved. That's the whole work of the Holy Spirit. But metrics that say you are being intentionally accountable.
Yeah, I would not create metric. Don't create a system of accountability around metrics that God is responsible for. Create a system of accountability around metrics of obedience. So you're supposed to share your faith. You're supposed to invite people to church. You're supposed to engage with unbelievers. So these are lead metrics. They're the things that you do that prompt, that lead to what God's work is. So, for our staff, we have to make phone calls every week, and we have a tracker that tracks who makes what phone calls. We don't know how God will work through those. That's God's work. So we're not going to build metrics around, how many people got saved. We still track that, and we're still in tune with it. But
you're doing the lead metrics, not the lag metrics.
We track everything, but we really hold people accountable to the lead metrics, the metrics of obedience. Are you following up with guests? Did you write the notes? Did you share your faith? Have you invited a neighbor? Whether or not the person gets saved, that's God's work, but God is going to work through us. So let's make sure we're doing the through part. We're the vessel. Let's make sure we're acting like the vessel. We're the clay pot that holds the treasure. Let's make sure the clay pot's on the move. So
clay pot on the move.
I know I'm mixing my metaphors. It's been one of those days. I'm not.
I'm trying to think of.
I take after my mom. All right, the clay pot's on the move.
I'm just seeing those pots with little eggs running all over the place.
Please, you will make my day, and whenever this airs, because we record them long before they air. But just quote me on Twitter. The clay pot is on the move, Sam Rainer, and I'll know what's going on. And then the world will think that I'm just a moron, but it will make my day. So yeah, please, somebody on Twitter do that and tag me in the quote.
So Sam, I was coaching someone. I'll just leave it at someone, really general, and I was actually going over some of these things to get them to move beyond what he called their stale state. That's how I referred to the church in this COVID era. And so I started talking about these things, and he said, Thom, I don't know how we can. We really don't know our community that well. well, we might have some people that'll go do business in our community, but we really don't even know who's there. I said, have you ever done a demographic or psychographic report? And it was just like a silent moment. And I don't want to call it a dumb moment because that would be insulting, but it was just like that moment. Oh no, we haven't. We've seen people, for example, take the Know Your Community report that we have, and their eyes get wide open at the possibilities. So that's one way to start looking for people to engage where their needs are.
Yeah, we'll have to have Amy put a link in the show notes for the Know Your Community report because it is available at churchanswers.com.
It is really
Go get
really,
you one.
Yeah. Where did that phrase come from?
I made it up.
No, that was I think that was Van, but I'm not going to go there.
I don't want to know what Van meant by that. Inside joke number 22 on the show. We've had like one.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right. Metrics for accountability, but some of those metrics could be as simple as attendance. You know, I'm seeing fewer and fewer churches post any kind of attendance now. And
it's shocking. Because they don't want to know the answer. I think a lot of people are scared to find out post-COVID. Listen, everybody's smaller. Rare is the church that's larger. You might as well start tracking it and just know, even if it's information that looks bad. It's just better for you to just know.
Here's the thing about it, Sam. You're not going to lose weight unless you step on the scale. You're not going to, okay, it's maybe a bad analogy. You're not going to break through barriers unless you know where you are now to know where you need to be.
You won't know what barrier to break through.
Yes, because you're not looking at the numbers.
It's called creating a baseline. It's hard
that's what many need to do now.
Yeah, it's hard to know where to go or what's next if you don't have a new baseline. Every church needs to create a new baseline. Yes, we're smaller. Yes, we're not where we need to be. And that's the story we hear over and over and over again at Church Answers. And that's why we exist at Church Answers, to help people get to where they need to be. Exactly. But it's tough to know what's next until you know where you are right now.
The calendar has become a blank slate. In other words, you ask the hard question, do we need to do everything we're doing? Now, let's erase it and let's start over. You cannot necessarily do away with all the programs, activities, ministries. You can't do away with them, but you can do it theoretically to ask the question, if we were starting with a blank slate, what would we stop doing that we're doing now, and what would we do that we're not doing?
Yeah, we just went through this process at West Bradenton where we completely wiped 2022 of everything, and then we asked the question, what activities, events, and programs will help us achieve the strategy for the year? And while a lot of the same things went back on the calendar, they went back on with more intentionality. It wasn't just, well, we did this last year, so let's do it again. Or it worked last year, so let's try it again. So in this process, it doesn't mean that you're going to come up with all new things. It just means when you put things back on the calendar, you're asking the right questions.
Exactly. And that's the churches that are breaking through these barriers because they're not comfortable with the way we've always done it without asking the question, is that the way we need to continue to do it? And that's what the blank calendar and blank slate is all about. The pastor has learned to let go. Really challenging here. You've gone through this season where you've brought more people, more leadership, more staff, more lay leadership on that you're equipping. But one of the things that holds us back in the barrier is the pastor's trying to do too much.
Yeah, I would say that letting go for me has been challenging in the sense that there's 20% of the church that left that I'm never going to see again. And it's been hard for me because we've made our phone calls. We've reached out. We've done what we could. They're not coming back. And so we've had to make the hard decision to channel our energies elsewhere into new people. And I think we're at that phase where the periphery is left. Those who might have been cultural Christians have left. They're not coming back. And we've said that over and over and over at Church Answers, like you're 20% smaller and the periphery's gone. Like, yes. I don't know how many times I've said that on a webinar to a coaching client, And then for me, what's the hardest thing to let go? Yeah, pot calling the kettle black, right? I
Yeah.
can't. It's been hard. And so I think part of letting go is just knowing that things aren't going to go back. They're not going back to the way that they were. And you have you have to start thinking of new strategies. Now, that can be refreshing. That can be refreshing because it's a new start. It's a blank slate, as we've also said. But when you're talking about people, it is difficult. And now, do your due diligence. You don't just give up on people, but there does come a point at which you have to ask yourself, where's my energy best? And for a lot of us now at this point, at this the stage of the pandemic, our energy is better spent focusing on reaching new people.
Which brings up, where's a good place to spend your energy? Yes, in the community. Yes, with the Great Commission. But those that are breaking this barrier have had an intense recommitment to groups. When you're in a group, assimilation is much higher. When you're in a group, the income per capita per person can be anywhere from 5 to 7 times higher than if you're not in a group. If you're in a group and it's an outwardly focused group, you're going to see natural connections come through that group. When these churches are breaking through these barriers, we're seeing these pastors say, I cannot do it all. Point number 6. And one of the ways that ministry can spread beyond me is through groups.
Yeah, we've had to create a whole new slate, to use the term again, a whole new slate of groups. We're doing podcast groups where people listen to a podcast and then they get together and talk about it. We're moving into curriculum-based groups that are closed groups for 8 and 10 and 12 weeks instead of ongoing groups, which I still love. Ongoing, connected to a worship service on a Sunday morning, or that's a great way to go. But we've had to add to that model where we're doing a lot of different things. And the thing that we're doing now, starting in 2022, actually it's already started, but we're going to go full steam ahead in 2022, is building groups around pods of people that are already serving. So they serve in this spot together every week. We might as well make a group out of that.
Yes.
So we're building groups built around where people are already serving. That could be a Sunday morning. That could be any time. So it's a little messy, and I know that there's a lot of theorists and practitioners out there listening to this going, "Oh, yeah, that's hard to manage," and it is. But it's the focus on groups that's most important. And it has energized our church. People are getting interested in getting back together for spiritual community and Bible study, and that's important.
I would recommend to our listeners, if they're really interested in breaking the barriers, and that's why you're listening to this podcast specifically today, look at this list of 7. I'm not going to reread them, but look at this list of 7. Start with 1 or 2 and start working on those. You're not going to be able to do all 7 at one time if you're not doing any of them right now, but start looking at these and say, where can we work this? Where can we work that? Some of the churches that are breaking the 150 to 250 barrier are doing 4 of these well, but maybe not 3. Some are doing 5, but maybe not 7. So think about how maybe there's some low-hanging fruit. And let me remind you, Sam asked Amy to put it in the show notes. If you haven't gotten Know Your Community, get the report, Know Your Community. What is it, 40-page report, 41? I don't remember.
37 to be exact.
37, but incredible summary through infographics on the front end. That's a great starting place. Just start going through that report and help you to know your community. You have a great introduction and explanation about how to do and understand Know Your Community, Sam. Mm-hmm. So
it's got a lot of introductory material that will help you through it, and clickable links, which is really nice in the PDF. So it makes things a lot easier, and it'll take you to even more information outside of the report, including
you can get hundreds of pages if you want to.
Yes, you could drill deep into this data, and that's what I like about it is the ability to kind of click through to the things that you think are important.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Rainer on Leadership. We have been sponsored by the Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. You've already heard Sam talk about that and how proud we are to have them as a sponsor. Just a reminder, go check out their MA in Church Revitalization. Check them all out, but all the degrees out. But that is one that you'll really appreciate, especially if you're a pastor or a leader in a context and you can't leave physically to go to seminary. Keep coming back. We've got a lot of information to share. In our next episode, we're going to be talking about 5 considerations before you leave your church. You will not want to miss that one. So come back to Rainer on Leadership and Church Answers, where we're helping churches get healthier together.